Hi Shivam, nice to see that you've sent us your first set of essays. Let's see what you did here. This first one is about doing an enjoyable activity with a child, so let's see what you wrote. In today's world, people who spend time with their offsprings by reading tends to improve their literacy skills. However, individuals who engage in social, physical, and artistic activities with their young ones vastly influence the skill sets by a ton. I completely agree with this approach. The essay discusses the perks of such joyful tactics, using examples from gaming industry and music sector to demonstrate points and support arguments. Okay, so here's the thing. In terms of structure of your introduction, it's fine. You did everything you're supposed to do. In terms of the language and some of the grammar and some of the punctuation, there are some errors that we absolutely have to fix. So why don't we start with that? First of all, no comma here. Okay, get rid of it because you could see even how I pause it, it sounds terribly unnatural. So it should, wait, there we go. In today's world, comma, people who spend time with their, and I don't really care for the word offspring because it's a term we use very often for animals and they're young. But even still, like let's say you kept the word offspring, it does not need an apostrophe s here. All right, because there's no possessive here. So in today's world, people who spend time with their offspring by reading tend to improve their literacy skills. Tend without the s because it's referring back to the people. But that doesn't make sense because what you're saying is that if I spend time with my children, I will improve. If I spend time with my children reading, then this will improve my literacy skills. Okay, because you have this there here, and it's not clear whose literacy skills are being improved. Due to the structure of the sentence, it would seem that you mean people. But I mean, obviously, I know that you mean offspring, but you can see how this is confusing. So you really have to be careful with constructions like this. All right. And then I would have put a full stop here. And then however should have started a new sentence. However, individuals who engage in social, physical, and artistic activities with their, and you know, you keep trying to replace the word child or children. You don't need to. Sometimes the most obvious word is the best. Young ones is really rather awkward. So just say with their children vastly influence the skill sets, and this was awkward by a ton. So what are you saying that the individuals who do these things influence the skill sets? I found this whole construction rather strange. So why don't we try to rephrase it a little bit to something more like, let me see if I can come up with something. Individuals who engage in social, physical, and artistic activity with their children help to develop various skills needed for the future. Okay, so something like that might have worked. Okay, and then I wasn't really a huge fan of this little sentence. Okay, so I would have somehow either attached it to the previous one. Let's see, they improve their literacy. However, people who do all right, you could have said something a little, just not like a tiny little sentence like this, like I am inclined to support this latter approach. All right, something like that might have been a little better. And then I wasn't really a huge fan of this either, joyful tactics. It's not a very natural collocation. Tactics are rarely described as joyful, so you really clearly meant something else. Discusses the perks of just, you know, fun activities. You don't have to replace every single word, okay? And then it should have been the gaming industry and the music sector. All right, let's move on because we spent a ton of time on this introduction. Firstly, fun activities can be vital when burgeoning a young one's mental health and capabilities. All right, again, young one. This is largely because enjoyable studying, you could have just said study, greatly boosts their time management, MENT, and memorization skills. Whenever we have a noun for something, we prefer that to the ing. For instance, certain Quest games on PlayStation or Nintendo devices require, it should be present tense, total attention and not tactful. You mean something else here. Maybe you mean tactical, but you don't mean tactful. Thinking before the allotted time runs out. Hence, upskilling an infant becomes more efficient when carried out with amusing media. Okay, again, I don't know if I really am a huge fan of this word. Upskilling. Let's see. You said fun activities. I'm just going to read it again to make sure I understood the order of your ideas. Okay, and I didn't understand this. You talked about study here, but then you talk about PlayStation and Nintendo, so I didn't get the connection. Those are not examples of study, okay? So this really didn't make sense to me, how you connected these two. If you had talked about enjoyable game time or enjoyable play greatly boosts their time management and memorization skills, and okay, it would have made sense to refer to PlayStation and Nintendo. Let's see, time management and memorization skills. Now, also, if you're talking about memorization, how does your example about Nintendo and PlayStation play into that? All right, if you're going to mention, and your words have to be very deliberate. So, I understand where the time management comes in here, thinking before the allotted time runs out, but I really don't understand the memorization. So, if it's not relevant, then don't include it. All right, let's move on. Furthermore, various artistic and musical skills can be evolved with such a riveting approach of entertainment. This is due to the fact that art, craft, and music practiced during the early ages have, get rid of this of here. So let's try it again. This is due to the fact that art, crafts, and music practiced during early ages have contributed to revolutionary artistic geniuses all around the world. For example, recent hip-hop rappers like, I don't know what that says, okay? And DaBaby, who are successful millionaires, have been working on music since their early days. Therefore, when such virtues are instilled during infancy, there's something happening with the grammar here. You know what's going on? Look, when you say, when such virtues are instilled during infancy, comma, subject plays an infinitely major role. Do you understand? So the problem arises when you use the when here, because it becomes a dependent clause, and you have to have a full clause including a subject and a verb in the second part of the sentence. So it doesn't quite work. Let's try it again. Therefore, when such virtues are instilled during infancy, they play an infinitely major role in being triumphant in life. Okay, we'll talk about it in a minute, but first I want to read your conclusion. To conclude, although reading is an important part of studying, incorporating a plain activity for a short period of time every day can prove to be more fascinating and can inculcate skill sets far superior to be a better person and malleate a better future for us all. All right. So the first thing that I want to talk about is some of this vocabulary. I can see that you've really taken great efforts to learn and to include some high-level vocabulary in here, but I have to be honest with you and tell you that in certain places, it just doesn't feel natural. It's just not how a high-level user of English would write, okay? So, like this, for example, a riveting approach. It's completely unnatural, and so I would absolutely change that. Let's see. Like this, in being triumphant in life. The word triumphant feels terribly unnatural. This too, fascinating, felt wrong, malleate a better future. So a lot of it really just feels too overdone. There are words which just belong more appropriately here. Now, I'm not trying to imply that you need to use low-level vocabulary. No, not at all. Some high-level vocabulary is very important, but it also needs to be used appropriately. Otherwise, any attempts to use it really just fall rather flat. So, let's go back into this second body paragraph first and look at that. Okay, so again, there was nothing about reading here. You didn't mention reading at all. All right, so there was no comparison to reading, even though it's clearly laid out in the essay. Okay, so let's see. Various artistic and musical skills can not evolved, can be created, can be fostered, can be encouraged, can be supported with the approach of entertainment. And I didn't really know what you meant by this, by entertainment. Maybe by practice, maybe by exposure to these elements, to these artistic kind of influences. Maybe you meant something like that instead. During early ages. Okay. And then you said they've been working on music since their early days. I think you could have been a little more specific. I think it would have been better, rather than saying their early days, if you had said that these people were exposed to music and began practicing music from their childhood, from the age of 5, from at least like the age of 4. So something a little more specific here. Okay. And what exactly are you telling us is the skill that you gain here? You said various artistic and musical skills. I think you could have gone into a little specifics about this, okay? So, here you mentioned reading very briefly, but like I said, I really do believe that you should have mentioned it in your body paragraphs, okay? So a lot of the grammar is good. The coherence and cohesion aspect of this essay is good, but for me, a lot of the vocabulary needs to be worked on. Yeah, primarily vocabulary. All right, so let's see what else we have. So let's look at this one about schools and whether they should only educate or whether they must entertain as well. So let me change this. Not since, but for the past half century, fun learning has been an increasing trend in modern society. However, some individuals prefer a direct approach towards learning. Please review the difference between for and since. My personal opinion would be my personal opinion is, and this isn't an opinion, what you're really stating here is a preference. So it should be, my personal preference is enjoying while learning. That makes sense. The essay discusses why the initial approach would be get rid of incredibly. Again, unnatural. Would be much better. Using examples from aviation industry and research institutes demonstrate points in program. Okay, so what you could have said here instead is why the initial approach would be remarkably better. That would be a nice expression, okay? All right, so let's move on. Firstly, the method of studying while being entertained has largely improved the grasping power of young learners. This is because adolescents, get rid of this apostrophe, have the innate ability to master difficult concepts in a short period of time only when the complex problems are made more intriguing. For instance, recent research done at the University of Harvard, it's called Harvard University, by the way, showed that math-solving games enhanced children's IQ, which in turn helped with analyzing critical situations during their examinations. Therefore, musing techniques accelerate the mental growth of young ones. Okay, this was good. Yes, that's fine. Cause look what you did. You talked about entertainment. You talked about games. Okay, and then you talked about amusing techniques. So that's fine. What a lot of people do wrong in this essay is they talk about engaging techniques and they talk about things that intrigue students and young people, but they don't use important keywords like games, amusement, fun, enjoyable, lighthearted, and those are all words that are related to entertainment. However, you did that, so that's very good. Okay, let's move on. Furthermore, young scholars participating in social, physical, and interactive events, get rid of seems to. So events boost their talents, and I don't like this pile up their skill sets. It's rather informal. It doesn't really quite work. So you could have used a word here instead like develop. You could have said increase, improve. I mean, any one of those would have been okay. The reason for this is because reason being is not it's not a full verb here. So avoid it. So the reason behind this is that such activities tend to evolve their unconscious mind and keep them psychologically fit and active. For example, Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, while in school took part in computer-based programming competitions, which led to blooming his technical knowledge. I don't know about blooming. How about honing? How about sharpening? How about increasing? One of those. And is now a self-made billionaire. Thus, multi-talented youth is only possible through the slight variation. All right, why are you talking about slight variation? Are you trying to tell us that competitions like this are slight variations? So again, with the word choice, it's not ideal here, okay? Slight variation. Also, we don't have any reason to believe that your example is talking about multi-talented youth. Far from it. I mean, you're talking about people who are very talented in one specific area. So careful with this. Well, you could have just said talented youth rather than talking about multi-talented. Okay? So you could have said something like, thus, talented youth is only possible through such initiatives in the educational institution. All right, now that would make more sense. However, let's talk about the bigger problem with this paragraph besides the vocabulary, and that is that it doesn't really talk about entertainment. Okay? Again, let me remind you that this essay is supposed to talk about entertainment, and talking about a computer competition does not qualify as entertainment. Where is the fun? Where is the amusement? Where is the game sort of pastime kind of element of this? Does that make sense? These things can be rather stressful and rather cutthroat. So it doesn't really qualify as entertainment, all right? It might be extracurricular, but entertainment, as I've already tried to explain, is something rather different. So let's look at the conclusion. To conclude from the examples and arguments given, I firmly believe that diversified talents can only be nurtured and not blossomed. Wrong word. Again, try one of those other words that I suggested. By rendering amusing methods to discipline. No, discipline is also the wrong word. We're not talking about disciplining them. We're talking about providing more opportunities for entertainment. So this is the wrong word. Okay, and then the rest of it is fine. So my first concern here is with a lot of the misused vocabulary. I want you to work on that. I want you to be a little more conscious of it. I want you to double and triple check the words that you're using before you submit your essays. There are a lot of ways to do that. There are countless tools online to help you do this, okay? All you really need to do, for example, is just in your favorite search engine type, I don't know, something like discipline in a sentence, and you will see not only its definition, but how it's used. So that's one piece of advice I want to give you. For now, let's talk about what you need to do. You need to correct these essays based on my suggestions, return them back to us. Begin your error correction list with the errors on one side and the corrected version on the right side. And of course, another set of essays, okay? Keep in mind all of the feedback that you've received during this correction, and let's see what you do in your next set, okay? Good luck.